Well, hello everyone. My name is Charmaine Siagian, and welcome to our first sacred piano webinar where we are featuring music from both Hal Leonard and Willis music. So let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and maybe tell us if you're a church pianist yourself. It's also absolutely fine if you're here just to watch Phillip or Glenda perform and tell listen to them tell us about their latest publications. So let's get to introductions. First, let me bring out Phillip Keveren, who is joining us from Franklin, Tennessee. Phillip is one of those people that can write in multiple genres and instrumentation. He is Hal Leonard's best-selling piano composer and arranger, and I would say all of you have probably played a couple of his arrangements or something else from his series. And he's been with Hal for over 3 decades, if I'm not wrong, Phillip.
I think that's correct.
Any words of greeting?
Good day to everyone. I was starting to say good morning, but we just lost that, didn't we?
Right. Great to have you here. But first, before Phillip comes on, is Glenda Austin, who is joining us from Joplin, Missouri. Yes. She has taught for many years in public school, but has been a church musician for her whole life, or as soon as she started to play, I think. She's a Willis composer and a William Gillock protege who has been writing since the 80s. Glenda, would you say? Since you're a baby. I know you're a baby back then.
Yes. Quite a while.
So take it away, Glenda. You are on.
Yes. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And it is amazing what technology can do. Who would have thought before COVID we'd be doing something like this? So I thank you all for the opportunity. And for those of you that are here live, I thank you for that. And I know later we'll have many, I think, watch the replay. So I'm here to share as Charmaine said, this is a sacred workshop. It's kind of a new thing we're doing. I've done this all my life, and we are featuring my series called Solos for the Sanctuary. And I've made some videos from a couple of the books that we're going to let you hear. And so I'd like to start off with one for the season that's coming, Thanksgiving, in the collection Solos for the Sanctuary. Seasons is Come, Ye Thankful People, Come. And Amy, would you play the video, please? And we're back. I hope you enjoyed that, and that maybe in your church you can use that as I said, in the upcoming season, it's not too far away. I will be playing that I play at 2 churches now, so I know I will be using that at both churches, and they are different denominations. That's one thing I like about the selections in these collections of mine. They are public domain, first of all, and they, to me, cross different denominations. I've played in many different denominations and used many of these arrangements. I'd say all of these arrangements at one time or another. Okay, we're going to move on to another classic. I call it a classic hymn, and this is in Preludes and Postludes for the sanctuary. But bear in mind, you could also use, I'd say, any of these for even an offertory, and I've done that many times as well. All Things Bright and Beautiful. I arranged this in what I consider kind of a light classical style. There's a trill or two. There are some scale passages, and I wanted it to sound clean, fresh, like if you see our weather today, I'm looking out, everything is bright and beautiful. The trees, the foliage. That's what I think of with this song. So, All Things Bright and Beautiful. Amy, let's see the video. And I'd like to say something about the tempo. I refrain usually from putting a metronome marking for a tempo. And if that sounds a little on the, let's say, upbeat side, it might be for you, but I might play it slower. In these arrangements, I want you to take the liberty to set a tempo. I will describe maybe how to play it, like joyfully, upbeat, but I don't want to set a tempo for you because I don't want that to stop you from playing something. And as I said, many times before, I have played that at a different tempo. I wouldn't go much faster. And that might have been a bit on the fast side. So keep that in mind as you hear me play. Don't think you've got to play it exactly the tempo that I'm playing it. I don't want you to. I want you to be comfortable with that in all of these. The third video is a hymn. It's an old hymn, of course, and I just don't think we hear this very often. I haven't seen it a lot in other arrangements. I'm sure it's out there, but some hymns are arranged all the time. There's hundreds, of course, of Amazing Grace, probably thousands. I haven't seen a lot of this one. It's called Wonderful Words of Life, and it's a favorite one of mine. I don't think we sing it a lot in the 2 churches that I play, and I'd like us to sing it a little bit more. So maybe this is a hymn for you that you haven't heard for a while, or your congregation hasn't sung. So Amy, here's my arrangement, the video of Wonderful Words of Life. I think that's one of the few arrangements in both of these books that I did not modulate to a different key. I had an interlude before I repeated it a second time. It started in the key of C and it ended in the key of C. And another thing about when I arrange a hymn, of course, the object is, what can you do that's a little bit different? You know, can you put your little stamp, your style on the arrangement? And I often start with some kind of an introduction. I will have, let's say, an interlude, and in between a transition. Usually I will modulate, but as I mentioned, this one stayed in the same key. And then very often at the end of an arrangement, I have what I call, I'm going to say a codetta. It's just a little extra ending that might not be the melody, but you just kind of wrap it up. And another thing you might notice when you hear these hymns, the harmonizations are sometimes different. That's another thing I like to do. Step outside of the box and find some different harmonies that fit the melody line to make it a little bit more different. I don't want it to be so different that you don't know what the arrangement is. And I've had people mention that before. You know, I want to make sure I can identify what the arrangement is. And I want you to know what the hymn actually is. So that's a little bit about me writing these arrangements and what I'm trying to do. The next arrangement is, I consider this kind of a staunch, I'm going to say noble, respectable hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. And in this arrangement, from the intro and the ending and a little bit throughout, I kind of heard two trumpets, kind of with a fanfare. So that's the style of this Come Thou Fount. Amy, let's hear and see this video. I hope you heard the trumpets throughout, because that, as I said, was my purpose for the introduction, the interlude, kind of haunting. And of course, it went into some different keys. But people request that particular hymn a lot. You know, if you play a lot of hymns, you get requests. And I'm sure all of you have a top 10 list of your most requests. And believe it or not, that seems to be one, at least where I play, the Come Thou Fount. And I would say all of the songs, the hymns in my books, I want to keep in mind, do the people know it? I don't want to get too far off the beaten path with some obscure hymn that maybe people don't readily recognize. So that's important to me, that I know the hymns that I'm playing. And again, like Wonderful Words of Life, I might pull in one that I think we don't do that enough, at least in my churches. So I don't know about yours. The next one, Standing on the Promises, I get a little bit jazzy. If some of you have heard some of my arrangements or heard me play or seen some other books of mine, I do tend to get in the jazzy area. And I do recognize and realize that there might be some of you a little not comfortable with doing that where you play, but you can play them at home. And I have played jazzy things at both of these churches. One church I play on a Steinway grand piano. The other church I have a digital keyboard, and I have a Rogers organ, and it's a beautiful organ. And I have played jazzy style arrangements on both of those instruments. But you have to use your own judgment with that. I like to kind of update the hymns in a jazzy way. And I think you'll hear this on Standing on the Promises. Amy, let's hear the video, see the video. That had straight eighth notes, that had swinging eighth notes, that had triplets, that had melody in your left hand, that had at the opening kind of what I call a freestyle ad lib introduction type. So that kind of had a little bit of everything. And another thing about the videos you're hearing today, most of these arrangements are 2 pages. Now, there are arrangements in both books that are longer than 2 pages, but I thought I want to keep it kind of concise, kind of short, so you could hear from beginning to end, and we didn't have to really cut anything. And the question comes up sometimes about the length of, say, an offertory or a postlude. Well, postlude, I don't know about your church. Ours can go on kind of unending. But a prelude, we have a very specific time that our pastor wants the prelude at one of the churches. And if it's not exactly long enough or too long, there are ways you can look at the arrangement and fix it, so to speak. You'd have to do a little timing at home, but most of my arrangements have introductions that can be cut. They have an interlude that can be cut. They have a modulation. You can stop at the end of the first arrangement and not go into the interlude and the modulation. They often have what I referred to as a codetta, or a little extra ending. There's a place where you can stop before that. And I do it all the time, and especially on offertories. I don't know about you all, but I'll tell you what, sometimes the offertory, the ushers, they go pretty quickly with that plate, and they're standing at the back waiting for the doxology chord. That's how it is in both of the churches I play. So as a church musician, I admit you kind of have to eyeball it, and you kind of have to wing it sometimes. But I think these arrangements help you do that if you need that to happen. Or if it's too short, you just go back and repeat it, and then you can end it again at one of those designated spots. Okay, there's one more video, and we're going to jump to Christmas. And I chose in the seasons, solos for the sanctuary seasons, the Christmas song I chose is O Little Town of Bethlehem, which we all know. And the reason I chose it is because this arrangement incorporates, of course, the melody we all know. And it incorporates another Old English folk tune called Forest, which I used to teach in my elementary music classes. It's another melody that fits O Little Town of Bethlehem. So I liked the idea of introducing a second optional melody. And if you teach a junior choir at your church by chance, you can add that in your Christmas carol singing. So Amy, let's hear O Little Town of Bethlehem. You know, I'd forgotten that ending. I like that ending. That concludes my videos and my presentation. And I do hope you'll jump in now and ask a question, Charmaine. I will send it back to you, and let's see if we have any questions or anything we need to add.
There were several questions, Glenda, but I think we'll save those for the end, if you don't mind. But I would encourage you, Glenda, to read through the comments. There's so many accolades for your playing. So wonderfully done. That was beautiful. And now I believe we are ready for Phillip Keveren. Phillip, you are on.
All right. Good to see you all, or imagine you all anyway. We're going to be focusing today on a new, and I put new in quotes because it's an anthology, a worship anthology. This is the third anthology that we've put together. Charmaine has just been an amazing editor on these books. We did a hymn, traditional hymn anthology. And then we did a Christmas Carol anthology. And now this is Praise and Worship anthology. And these books have been pulling what we hoped would be the best of the arrangements that I've done over the last 25, 30 years that have been in my series. And this particular one focusing on arrangements of praise and worship titles. So these are going to be newer copyrights, things that have been written in the last several decades, as opposed to traditional hymns, which can date back centuries, as you know. The thing that's interesting is that you start picking what songs you're going to put in. We have to remember that worship songs are not just something that's happened in the last 20, 30 years. If I go back into memory logs of my own experience, I think of when How Great Thou Art was a controversial song in church because it wasn't in the hymn book yet. I can remember that very clearly. So it was a kind of a praise and worship song of its day. I included an arrangement of How Great Thou Art in here. And I also included an older, very old at this point, The Family of God, which is a Gaither song from 1970. But I wanted those to be in there just as a touchstone to say, you know, these are some favorites from bygone eras that were in their day, new worship songs. There are also some artists' songs that were originally recorded by Christian artists, but have qualities about them that are just wonderful for piano instrumental arrangements. And parts of them also do get sung congregationally sometime. And then at the end, we have a little bit of a bonus. There are some Christmas medleys, things that pair, arrangements that pair traditional carols with newer worship titles. For instance, Angels We Have Heard on High paired with Open the Eyes of My Heart. That may seem like kind of an odd pairing, but it's kind of fun. You're taking a melody that people know from contemporary times and pulling it into a Christmas mashup. We are going to start with an arrangement of Give Thanks, one of my favorite worship songs. It happens to work beautifully with Pachelbel's canon. It has the same chord progression. So here's a sample of Give Thanks. Let her roll, Amy. This is one that I play every Christmas for the last, I'd say, 7 or 8 years. At Christmas Carol evening, And they always want, I did an adaptation of this for violin and piano. It's essentially this arrangement, but bringing the violin into it. You might have noticed on my piano in these videos, you see a little character and you're going, what is that orange thing on Philip's piano? That is a gift from my kids that goes back to around, I don't know, 1990, I suppose. Sebastian the Crab, was the court composer in The Little Mermaid. I didn't know until I looked it up just a couple of days ago. His full name is Horatio Thelonious Ignatius Crustaceus Sebastian. We'll just call him Sebastian the Crab. That piano that I'm playing, I don't mean to make this sound like a historical tour here, but I just sometimes time surprises me. That piano was purchased in the year that Lisa and I were married, which was 40 years ago this year. So time, it is a passing. The next piece that we're going to look at is Awesome God. Really one of those just timeless worship songs. And in this case, it is a theme and variation style. I'm going to give you like the first theme and a little bit of the first variation, I believe. Let her roll, Amy. This particular piece, you're probably thinking that's a pretty wide range of styles that might be in a book like this, being that it's in an anthology. And you would be right. These first two we've heard are kind of in the classical mode, but because literally these arrangements come from a dozen or 15 different books, and some of them were in jazz styles, some of them were Celtic arrangements, various things. You're going to see a pretty wide stylistic range. So, this as a resource for you, this is something you can put up on the piano and have there to, provide music for a variety of settings, whether it's offertory or postlude or, I think you'll find a lot of things. And Here I Am to Worship is really my approach on this arrangement is imagining that it's a piano, an acoustic bass, and I'm hearing a drum player in my head. You'll hear the left hand is often kind of hinting at what an acoustic bass might do. Here I Am to Worship. Yes, to kind of add to what Glenda was saying earlier, the notion of finding arrangements that are the right length for what you need in your service. That particular arrangement is a pretty good example of how we came to places where we could have ended 3 or 4 different times before modulations that are really, you've kind of come to a plateau and you could easily end it. And that is purposeful in these arrangements, knowing that people have different needs and different lengths that they need for the setting. The next piece was originally a song that I remember hearing on the radio from Laura Story. This is her original song called Blessings, and it's truly one of the most beautiful melodies. Just thought it would work well as a piano solo. Blessings. Laura Story was a guest artist at our church a number of years back, and I was so delighted to find out that she was every bit who you would want her to be. That song is so sweet and heartfelt, and I found her as a person to be really, really delightful. Build My Life is a pretty new worship song. I should look at what the copyright says. We added, I think, what did we have? 6 new arrangements are in this anthology that have not been published before as little bonuses in this anthology. And this is one of them. Pretty new copyright. This is a song. Sometimes these worship songs have melodic lines that don't instantly work that well instrumentally on the piano. And what I have found that is those kinds of things sometimes work well as almost rubato recitative, if you know what I mean, kind of just no tempo and let it happen in a very relaxed manner. And it works better than trying to make it metric. And that's what I did here in Build My Life. The verse is quite rubato, and then it settles into tempo as you enter the chorus. Build My Life. In this same category is a very new song, Graves into Gardens. And in the case of this arrangement, I put just a touch of "'Tis So Sweet to Trust in Jesus" as a transition between sections. Your younger listeners won't recognize the reference, and your older listeners won't recognize the song. So that might be an interesting combination. Anyway, Graves into Gardens. Okay, so these selections were all from our new collection, The Essential Worship Anthology. Say that 3 times in a row. I will say, Charmaine, again, your editing and production of this book, it's in a beautiful comb binding. So the book is going to last a long, long time, and you can put it on your piano and not worry about page turning. It's really well done. Turning to Christmas, another book that Charmaine put together. This is a book called Christmas Imaginations, one of the most beautiful covers I've ever seen in the print world. This is a collection from a variety of arrangers, and my contribution, one of them, was Still, 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 and I'm taking a jazzy approach to this. Okay. Sending it back to you, Charmaine.
So beautiful, Philip. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. And now we are ready for questions. Glenda, there was what Michael Kenneth, I think, asked about elementary collections that you might suggest for students. I had mentioned your first worship tunes.
Mm-hmm. Well, Philip, don't you have a very early hymn? I think you do.
Yeah.
And gosh, I'm kind of blank right now, but I know there are many. I hate to say Google it, but I think you would find a list at even the Willis Hal Leonard website, early hymns. I'm trying to think with the John Thompson, the Teaching Little Fingers, all those collections we did, Charmaine.
Yeah, I think there's Teaching Little Fingers to Play Hymns.
Mm-hmm.
That's one.
Yes.
I can't remember if you did that or if Carolyn Miller did.
I think Carolyn did, but that's very early level.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what he means by early level, but
Yeah.
I have seen many collections from that primer level to, of course, off the chart level. Very difficult. Right. But I know Philip has one, and I'm just thinking of that because you're right here.
Yeah, and Hal Leonard Student Piano Library also has graded hymns. Yeah, there's I think if you go to the Hal Leonard site, you'll discover a lot.
I think that's correct. They are out there.
Perfect. Okay, there is another question about, this is a simple one, but it's from Helene Friedlander. Can you show us how to arrange hymns? And I'm guessing she means not congregational, but feel free to speak on that as well. And you can give the short version because that's a long answer.
I think Glenda gave us a tutorial in her presentation. These really clever introductions that might have some little snippet of a motif that comes out of the melody of the hymn, but an original idea, and then looking for little harmonic differences that might freshen it up a little bit. Not a lot, just enough to give it some sparkle. And I love the way that Glenda also puts an interlude in there. And that interlude, if you're not sure if you can write your own, go look through your piano repertoire and find some little section of a Bach prelude or there's that early intermediate level piano material sometimes can provide some little idea that you can tag in there, even if it's just a chord progression, to connect varying sections. That's some thought there anyway.
I agree. And I listen to a lot of music on the radio as I'm driving to different stations. And I have to say, I will hear something, and it may not be a hymn or it may not be something I'm going to arrange, but I hear a chord and I think, oops, I want to remember that one. It's just cool and it sounds good. And I think I can use it somewhere. So I listen to a lot of music while I'm driving, and I think I get ideas from that.
That's good.
So you just start, and I don't know, Helene, if you play by ear, but for me, a lot of my arrangements come at the piano, just kind of sitting down. I don't want to say mindlessly playing, but you just kind of play by ear, improvise, and a little motive will appear, and you might go from there. Now, a lot of times it doesn't work that way, but that's a big way that I write, by listening and writing at the piano.
I think another thought is that, especially if you're doing hymns that are typically in 4-part harmony in the hymnal, and you're thinking, how do I write a piano arrangement? Write out the melody line, the soprano line, and take it away from that 4-part writing that you're looking at, and just approach it like you'd never seen this before, and figure out how you might accompany that to get yourself out of the very blocked approach that might be in your hymnal.
Yeah. I agree with that. Just take the melody line and experiment.
I was going to say, there's one question that came in. Do you have any recommendations for congregational hymn arrangements? You guys probably both just do your own thing because you're so
well.
good.
If the congregation is singing, and I've been asked this question before, sometimes when I've played an arrangement, do you play like that when they're singing? And the answer for me is no. I don't go away from the chord structure. I might improvise in terms of, adding to it, but I never go outside of what the structure is in the hymnal because somebody might be singing a part.
Right.
So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I stay within those lines of what is in the hymnal for the people.
I agree. And sometimes the simplest thing to do is just let your left hand play in octaves and put the tenor, alto, and soprano in your right hand. So you get this, which becomes a bigger, fuller sound at the piano than if everything is in the center where people are singing.
I agree.
Great. I saw a question. Philip, do you have any more piano calm books in the horizon? That's a good question.
No, I probably should. We're all anxious these days. But no, I don't have another piano calm at the moment.
We will consider that. Okay, do you have any advice for church pianists just starting out?
For what? For church
pianists that are just starting out
with a job?
Yeah.
You mean at a church? Oh.
Because you grew up playing for your own church, correct? That's usually how most of us start.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing that jumps out at me is, I would say at least 99% of the time, you're going to have a church director, a song leader that you'll have to work with. At least that's been my experience. It's not so much these days, but in the years where we had choirs and directors and we planned the music for the congregational singing, if you're just starting out and there is a person like that, you'll want to meet with them, and maybe the pastor as well. I've been in situations where the pastor really wanted to be a part of the music. And then I've had situations where the pastor left it totally up to the music people. But I would say that if there isn't a person, well, you're on your own. Pick out some good singing hymns and go for it. Philip?
Yeah, from a little different angle, I would say be yourself. I think that sometimes we get into the situation where we hear someone else play and we feel, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can do that. And then you get yourself into a frame of mind where you're not able to do your best because you're imitating somebody else. Just get in there and be yourself and be genuine and authentic with your folks that you're working with.
Great answers. Marie Dickinson asked, Philip, you mentioned arrangements with violin. Where can I find those arrangements? I missed that.
Yeah, I mentioned Give Thanks. I had done a violin piano. That was an album from 20 some years ago, and some of those are available on my website. If you go and look under print music, you'll see instrumental violin piano things there. I only put up things that are public domain. And so I just don't want to mess with the print right stuff on there. So you will find hymn titles in other public domain. You won't find things like Give Thanks.
Excellent. Okay, I think we're right exactly at an hour. And so before we leave, do either of you or both of you have any final words of wisdom for the people watching? Maybe Glenda, you go first.
Well, I like what Philip said. Be yourself and play on the level that you're comfortable. there are all levels of arrangements out there. Find a book that you are comfortable with, the style, the level, and what you can do. And don't be afraid to do it. You know, a lot of church musicians, especially starting out, they're very nervous. But believe me, a lot of churches are very grateful to get someone to play. We have that situation in our area now where they're looking for people. There aren't enough. So you are something that could really make a difference in a worship service, but get the right level that you're comfortable and people will enjoy it. Play from your heart. Get these arrangements. And I know you love hymns or you're not here or you're not playing at a church. So make them yours. Have a good time with it as the Lord leads, I like to say.
I would concur with all of that and double down on the point of playing within your level. I oftentimes will bring an easy piano edition of carols or hymns or worship songs that if I'm suddenly playing for a funeral or something where I know I'm going to need a bunch of music, I don't want to be thinking about it. I don't want to be fumbling around trying to play something that I should have practiced. So there's nothing wrong with having something below your level where you can really emote and play beautifully without the stress.
I agree. Be comfortable, number one,
Yeah.
and then go for it. The people will enjoy it and they will sense that you're not struggling.
Well, thank you so much, Glenda Austin, Phillip Keveren, and also Amy Thomason is behind the scenes making this all run. So thanks everyone for being here. We will see you at the next webinar.
Thank you.
I have my hand up.
Oh, sorry.
One more thing. And I know Philip's hand was up too.
Oh, I didn't.
We want to thank you and Amy and Hal Leonard and Willis for pulling this together because believe me, I wouldn't be here without you all pulling it together and my husband because I wouldn't even know how to sign on. So I thank you all because there's a lot of work behind the scenes that people don't see. Thanks, Charmaine and Amy.
Ditto.
Thank you both again.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.